What's up, everyone? Today we are going to jump into the book of James. James, that's probably one of my favorite books because he's so blunt, to the point. He gives you solutions to the problems. He doesn't just tell you problems. He actually gives you solutions and a way out. So we're going to start in James chapter 1, 2 through 8. Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. But if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But he must ask in faith, without any doubting. For the one who doubts is like the surf of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For that man ought not to expect that he will receive anything from the Lord, being a double-minded man, unstable in his ways. So there are going to be three things we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss what is double-minded, how to not be double-minded, and number three, when is wisdom learned? If this is your first time tuning in, or your second, third, however many times you've joined in, I appreciate each and every one of you. I just ask you to hit that subscribe button below and make sure that you are subscribed so that you can be up to date with all the different Bible studies we do. So let's jump right in. What is double-minded? I'm going to give you 8 things that represent what double-mindedness is. Number 1, you're two-faced, hypocritical. You say one thing and you do completely the opposite. Number 2, you procrastinate and lack action. You don't move. You always say that you're going to get to it tomorrow, just like dieting or exercising or any other thing. Waking up early, if you haven't been in that Bible study, I recommend you checking that one out. But you always say you're going to start something, but you're always going to start it tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. Number 3, you're insecure in your faith. You talk about faith, but you live in doubt. Number 4, you're easily distracted. Number 5, you seek man's approval and God's approval equally. Number 6, you don't want to deal with issues head on, but will talk about it behind others' backs. Confrontation scares you, so you gossip or coward from making things right. Number 7, you get excited quickly and fizzle out even faster. Never finish what you start. Number 8, you lack discipline in your marriage, friendships, you jump job to job or church to church because things get hard or you end up not liking someone. When things get tough or you lose interest, you're gone. You pray for a financial blessing, but you are financially irresponsible. You lack the discipline that is needed to maintain a single-mindedness. So now that we know what double-mindedness is, and I'm pretty sure each and every single one of them, including myself, can relate somewhat to some of these, if not multiple of these. So if we go back to verse 6, he says, "But he must ask in faith without any doubting, for the one who doubts is like the surf of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind." So faith comes with an internal feeling of resistance. It takes fighting against your flesh. It's like a sailboat in a storm. And I started to look up a sailboat and sailboats, and there is so much terminology. It's almost like listening to a different language. And I am not up to date with all of the different languages when it comes to understanding the different props and parts of a sailboat. But one thing I did learn about sailing a sailboat, I feel like overcoming double-mindedness is like a sailboat that is caught in a storm. There's a few things that you don't do. Number 1, you do not go back to where you came from. If the storm has come towards you and you start to head back, you're going to follow the storm back, and you're more likely to be tossed and thrown into rocks or into a dock or into something else, causing much more damage to your boat than if you would just stay out there. Just like if that boat gets destroyed going back, sometimes what we want to do when things get rough and we're in that storm, and we need to have faith in what we have learned, we want to head back in fear because we know that's where the solid ground is and where we're called to be is ahead. So what we end up doing is we end up running back to where we were, and then we wonder why our life became destroyed because we never continued along the path that God had set out for us. Number 2, when in a sailboat, it takes work. It is not in that you can just sit back and relax and just wait out the storm. You have to work that boat, just like you have to work yourself, that when you are trying to seek wisdom, you're trying not to be double-minded, you're trying to to live this life of righteousness, you have to work at it. It takes faith, it takes struggle, it takes perseverance, it takes fighting for what you know you have to do and where you're going, and not looking back at where you came from. You can't lose focus on what you have to do. You cannot be distracted by the waves, the lightning, the wind, the storm that's all around you. You have to stay focused on what you have to do to get through this storm. It is faster, if you're in the middle of a storm, to continue to go through it than to try to follow it back to land. You'll be in the storm much longer than if you're going through it than following with it, than moving with it. You have to stay in control. Just like the boat, you have to maintain control of that boat at all times. Just like yourself, you have to maintain control of your mind, of your emotions, and you have to be prepared spiritually for this so that you can continue to move through it. Number 5 is you definitely don't want to give up. Because if you just give up, you're going to allow the storm and everything else to control you and could capsize you and make your life worse than it was before. The goal is to become stronger and better and stay focused on the goal of where you're going. Number 6 is when this storm comes, you must take action. You cannot hesitate sometimes. If you start to see the wind pick up, there's things that you have to do with that sailboat to prevent the wind from driving that boat in the wrong direction or causing that boat to crash or capsize. You have to take action without hesitation. When God is a calling and you're starting to move forward, you have to stay focused, single-minded, and move forward. And lastly, you have to believe in yourself and believe that God will get you through any storm. God has given you the ability to make it through it. You just have to believe in yourself and have faith in God that He's going to help you through this. So if you go back to verse 5, it says, "But if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him." A lot of people say, this is because God will give you anything and everything you ask for. It's very, very specific here that He's talking about if you lack wisdom. Wisdom is what's going to help you get through this. Wisdom is going to be the one who's going to help, teach you the ways of life and the ways around some of these obstacles that may be coming at you. But the question is when is wisdom learned and how is it learned? Wisdom is learned in movement, not stagnation. It's like water. Water builds bacteria and becomes undrinkable when left stagnant. But moving water is thirst quenching. It cannot grow bacteria when it is moving. The problem with most of us Christians is that we spend most of our time stagnant in our faith and we're not moving forward, because in that movement we will come up with, there will be obstacles. There'll be things that we'll have to get around or break through. And through those things, we learn and we grow in that wisdom, not sitting stagnant. That's why the world looks at us Christians as this bacteria-infested, disease-carrying, Christian, instead of the thirst-quenching goodness of the Lord. Wisdom is learned in hardship, not prosperity. See, a lot of us want the goodness of God and all the prosperity that we hear preachers talk about, but we never want to go through the hardship. See, the hardship is the time and the place that we can learn wisdom on how to get through that, so that when we become prosperous in different areas of our life, that we have a better understanding of it and we respect it more because we know what it takes to get there. Wisdom is learned in understanding you are immature and ignorant, not being a conceited know-it-all. To think that you know everything does not help you grow in wisdom, but to understand that you are still growing and that you don't know everything and that you're willing to seek out and find answers, that is where wisdom will begin to grow in your life. And lastly, wisdom is learned in the fight, not in the retreat. Too many of us Christians want to retreat from problems and issues and, from conflict because we're scared instead of doing what is right. And wisdom is actually gained in the fight. You'll never know how to fight through something if you've never gone through it. Most Christians want to retreat. They want to run from their problems. They want to run from the struggle. They don't want to face that hardship in their marriage or with their kids or at their job. They just want to jump from job to job or friendship to friendship, family member to spouse to spouse. They have no consistency in their life because they're not willing to fight. It's time that we fight and stop retreating. I'm going to leave you with one last little thought. Life is 10% of what happens to you and about 90% on how you deal with it. It's how you think about what you're doing, where you're at, why you're there, and how you get through that. So I encourage you today to build up some wisdom. Don't be that stagnant Christian. Get out there and work, and when the storm comes, you fight through it. You pray for that wisdom. You know these hardships are coming, and we're going to work through them. We are not going to be the one that cowards and runs away from it, because we are going to grow stronger, and we are going to get ourselves through it, because greatness is on the other side. And if we can get ourselves on the other side, we know what it takes to get through it. So if we are ever attacked by it again, it won't take us as long to get through it. And it will allow us to have a joy and more joy as we actually work through it. And that's why in the beginning of this scripture it says, I consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that testing of your faith produces endurance. That endurance will allow you to get through these things faster and easier every single time one of them come. So count it joy whenever you're encountered by something like this. Look for the wisdom, learn, look internally. How can I become a better person? How can I be a better Christian? How can I be a better father, spouse, friend, worker, whatever it is? How can we be that better image of Christ to this world and not that stagnant, bacteria-infested water that the world sees us as? Love you guys. Have a great day.